Bizarre Brain Comics. Hello, my comic book friends, and welcome to Bizarre Brain Comics Creature Feature. Yeah. Yes, we're into Spooktober, the spooky month of Halloween, of October for Halloween, and that's a good opportunity to talk about Swamp Thing, as I have in years past. Because I was never a big Swamp Thing fan, but I like some of the stuff. But what we're looking at today is not your average everyday Swamp Thing comic. Now, this is Swamp Thing Annual #1 from 1982. It is the official comic adaptation of the 1982 Wes Craven film starring Adrienne Barbeau, Louis Jourdan, Ray Wise, and Dick Durock. And this comic book was scripted by Bruce Jones with art by Mark Texiera and Tony DeZuniga. And of course, Swampy is created by Len Wein and Bernie Wrightson. And of course, this is a movie from 1982. Very low budget, as Wes Craven's movies are known for, and he's had some very good ones and done some classic ones too. It says a low budget, but it is pretty well written. The Swamp Thing costume and makeup was very cheaply done, unfortunately. But see, for all of that, when this movie came out, it was a surprising success. Not, real big box office, but surprisingly successful. And see, at the time, because it had this, most Wes Craven stuff, you don't ever get books or comics or anything like that. But of course, Swamp Thing started out in the comics. It only makes sense that that they do a comic adaptation of the movie. And there was also a novelization of that movie, which I had at the time. Unfortunately, I no longer have it, and I wish I had kept it, because that would probably be worth something now. But it was surprisingly successful, and of course there are some changes, like the Swamp Thing character from the comics, who is Cable, is Agent Cable, is male in the comics, but here they change that character into female, starring Adrienne Barbeau. Adrienne Barbeau is a well-known actress at the time. She's not as well-known today. She was the daughter in the long-running successful sitcom Maude, and after that she was on various other TV shows and smaller movies. She was, if you remember, even she was even in Creepshow. And it's when she was younger. Now when she pops up, she's usually playing grandmothers instead of the ingenue like she was back then. Okay. Now, what was I going to say? I hate it when I lose my train of thought. Oh, a few years later, in 1989, they finally came out with a sequel to it. And it had a bigger, better budget, so the Swamp Thing costume was much better and more impressive. Unfortunately, the writing wasn't nearly as good, and it came out being more of a campy comedy, adventure comedy, than the more serious tone that the original one had. But this is the novelization to that, and of course, here is my DVD of the original Swamp Thing, and you can kind of see how kind of lacking that costume is. If you can see any of this stuff, they had to mess with the photographs on the cover to make them look a little better. And anyway, then that but that was a fairly successful film as well, which gave rise to the HBO, which was a continuation of the same storyline, same plot. The Swamp Thing HBO TV series, which I guess ran for just one season. Oh, I'm surprised it even lasted that long. Oh, it was terrible. I never got to see it back then, and just a few years ago, it was on a, a cable channel, and I started watching it. I watched a couple of episodes, and boy, that was bad. Then, of course, after that, gave rise to the animated 1990s animated series of Swamp Thing. And Swamp Thing, you are amazing, and all, and I don't think I've even ever watched any of the Swamp Thing animated shows, of course, and that is all completely different from the newer Swamp Thing TV series. Again, just lasting one season from about 7 or 8 years or so ago. Maybe not even that long. I don't remember. I've got it, and it is much better written, and it's very enjoyable, and it is a creepy show. And I have that on DVD as well. So now we're going to take a few minutes. We're going to look through it. I'm going to try to go. I've talked too long already, so I'm going to try to make this a little quicker. But this is a nice cover illustration. This is the original movie poster, and I don't know who did it. There's no credits on here. It is very reminiscent of Bernie Wrightson. So although I don't think he necessarily did that poster painting. Whoever did do it was, I think, following the influence of Bernie, right? So, okay, it's all about Swamp Thing in the Louisiana swamps. Oh, I wanted to mention here this was filmed in. Even though the story takes place in Louisiana, it was filmed in Charleston, South Carolina at Magnolia Gardens. I know this because I happened to be stationed in Charleston at that time on my ship, and it happened to be off-crew period. So I was there, and we heard about it on the news and clips and stuff. So we heard about it being filmed there at Magnolia Gardens, which is a nice place. I've been to Magnolia Gardens. It's a touristy thing, but it's beautiful swamp stuff, and some beautiful houses. And I think they shot some of those exteriors at some of those buildings there, and but there is one character in here as the only juvenile, a kid, a character in this movie, and it was talking about how they hired a local kid who was not an actor, but they hired a local kid to play this part. And they liked this kid so well that they expanded his part a little bit. And he had the best line in the whole movie. And I suspect, since the fact that it's not in here in the dialogue, I suspect it was an ad lib. And it was referring to when he sees a smashed up car, and it says, it hit a tree. And the kid looks and says, "There's no tree there." He says, "Must be one of those hit and run trees." The best line in the whole movie, and it's not even in here. So, but you'll see where it comes. Swamp Thing, helicopter coming into the secret lab in the middle of the swamp, and all these tacky rundown buildings, except the labs are inside and they're all nice and high tech, causing it. She's an agent for the company, I think. It just doesn't specify. This is a secret government lab doing some secret research. It's never explained really what it is, what it's for. She's to replace another agent who was attacked by an alligator, but they have the sensors in the perimeter, and she sees, a sensor is out, said, okay, we'll have to send someone out to take care of it, yada, yada, yada. She's meeting the people, meeting the boss, goes in to meet the scientists. It's Alec Holland, which was played by Ray Wise, who has, when he was young and handsome, and in more recent years, he winds up playing vile villains in very low-budget movies, and terribly made movies. Terribly written movies, and And so they're in the lab, meets Alec Holland and his sister, who are the scientists there. And so he decides, as they meet him, let's take... she mentions the sensor, which is down. He takes her out there, and they start looking at the sensor, and then they discover, the wires were cut. So this is, they get Ritter, the boss. That that stuff is cut. Then they hear what sound like gunshots. So somebody's been fooling around, and turns out it's the new version of their formula for whatever the hell the formula is supposed to be for. And said it's unstable. And watch this, it goes pop, pop, pop. It pops. It's very volatile. And then they're looking into it, and then they look at the stuff under the microscope, and it is some kind of stuff that is a blend of animal and plant cells, and it pours some on a plant and just pops up. Whoosh! There it goes. Then the bad guys bust in, and Ritter, their boss, is also head of the bad guys, but it turns out, takes off the mask, it's Arcane, the evil Arcane. That's Louis Jourdan. Louis Jourdan was a very famous French actor, best known probably for his roles in Gigi, and just a couple years after this movie, he was a Bond villain. So, and he did a very commendable job as Dracula in a BBC production of Count Dracula in the 70s. So he's trying to course, get the notebooks, we'll see how you did it. The sister punches the guy holding the gun on her. She gets shot accidentally. The notebooks are scattered all over the place. One skips away, and Holland and one of the goons, Tussle, he gets knocked into the table. The formula is spilled all over him, and he bursts into flame. Ah! He rushes out. And Cable had previously been knocked unconscious, but she's hiding the awake now, and she hides the last of the notebooks. And he rushes and jumps into the water, or whoosh. He said, well, he must be dead. And the rest of the place just goes up. She manages to crawl out before they dynamite the place, and she's hiding, but. She finds a place to hide that notebook. Just before she gets discovered, she's hauled off, and because they said no witnesses, tosses her in the swamp and going to hold her down, and suddenly this huge, massive green arm reaches up and grabs the guy and pulls him into the water, and then knocks the boat over. Boom! And it is our first appearance of Swampy, who of course we know is Alec Holland. But here, Swampy is played by Dick Durock. Now, from what I understand, Ray Wise, who was supposed to play Swamp Thing in the costume, but he was either claustrophobic and couldn't handle it, or some other health thing with the makeup. So the Dick Durock, who was supposed to be the stunt man, the stunt double, wound up taking over the whole part, including the dialogue, because Ray Wise was going to do the close-ups, the dialogue, and he was going to be the big, massive thing moving around. But he wound up playing the whole thing. And so he grabs the girl, and all the goons are blasting away, but nothing happened. He sets her down or someplace safe, and then, so long, baby. Then he comes out, whoom! He grabs the goons and starts wailing into them. Crack, crack. They're shooting, and he starts. This guy's dead, and now they're really spooked, and they scamper off while she goes through the swamp trying to find help. Here we are at the main house, the Arcane estate. Not far away. He's going through all the notebooks, so he discovers one of the notebooks is missing, the last one, the one that actually has the formula. Then he's called away by the goons, tell him about Swamp Thing, and he says, what about it? And he said, get it, kill it, whatever. And the girl, Cable, gets to a rundown old gas station. This is where we meet Jude, who is played by the local boy, the one who has the best line in the movie. She asks for help, cuts the cop, uses the phone, and to call her boss, which is routed back to Arcane, because she doesn't know that he was pretending to be Ritter, who is dead, but nobody knows Ritter's dead. And but then the goon squad shows up, and we hide. We have to hide. He happens to have a gun in there, so she has the kid hide, and she scampers off. They chase her, and this is when Swampy jumps out, and he is the hit and run tree that the car runs into. This is when this is where that line should have been, but they didn't have it, and Jude rushes her off to a place to hide in a boat in the swamp, going to a swamper's cabin. But she is shadowed and protected by Swampy, and then but the goons are in airboats after her. There's fight. Good interplay here, taking out some of the boats. Cable gives the notebook to Jude, says, "Go get this, take this out of here, get it safe, and get help." And then she goes off, and because there's Arcane's yacht, but Jude's boat drifts back. Jude has been injured. The book is gone. Now she is captured, and Swampy finds the kid, helps him, gives him the book back, and says, "Hide this, and we'll get you back to find Cable." Okay, so she is on the boat. She while they're getting fresh, she manages to get away again, runs right into Swampy, and he really lays into, even though he is injured with a machete, cutting off one of his hands, really ticks him off. He grabs his arm, he grabs the guy and crushes his skull. Oh, but then they're trapped in a net, hauled off to Arcane's lair. And he has managed to get the duplicate the formula from the Swampy himself. I want to test it. Oh yeah, Bruno, he was a good guy. He's a hero of the day, having a big wing-ding on his favor. And now we're going to test the formula. And it turns out he gave Bruno the formula. He didn't know it, and it turns him into this squealing little pig guy. That's unexpected. And he goes down to see Swampy as he's chained up with the girl with Cable in the dungeon basement, and then when they're left alone, Cable talks to him and convinces him that, because he's depressed and dejected, but there's a beam of light. He's able to reach up, just get his hand into the beam of light, and he starts to recover. His arm grows back. Meanwhile, Arcane is testing the stuff on himself. Swampy breaks loose, tries to get him, but can't get through the door. Grabs the little Bruno, who is angry, takes him, leads him away out of there. There's this like a cistern, and there's a way out directly into the swamp there. They swim out, get out into the swamp. Meanwhile, Arcane pops up, boosh, because he had followed them, and he was mutated by the serum. It didn't work anything the way he thought. He has transformed him into a horrid monster. He grabbed a decorative sword from the wall and is after them. Now it's fight. Cable is injured, possibly fatally. That really ticks off Swampy, and it's fight, and finally, what seems to be the end of Arcane, except he comes back in the next movie, and manages to save using his Swampy powers, heals Cable. Jude shows back up, and he takes off, and they are A-OK. The villain is defeated, and it was a surprisingly good film. For considering it was low budget, low quality on the makeup and costuming, but you get past that, it was for what it was a decent movie. That is decent insofar as being a creature feature. So that's all I have to share with you this time. Thank you for joining me for Spooktober. Thanks. And leave your comments down below. Have you seen the Swampy movies? Have you seen any of the TV shows? What did you think of any of them? Did you think they were all horrible and disgusting? That's fine too. Let me know in the comments below. And remember, focus, comics are art.